Welcome back to XCOM. So I already had this mission set up from the last episode, I should say. Yeah. Check on all my bases. Oh, running quite low. This is going quite smoothly, actually. Yeah, surprising. Do prefer fighting in deserts like this over the farm buildings. Yeah, although you get fired on a lot more at the start, by the same token, the aliens are revealing themselves to you quicker, so you don't really need to... You don't need so many people to look around, because it's more obvious where the aliens are. In fact, they revealed themselves to you, thanks to the bullets flying past your head. At least, if they miss, which they often do. I'd say most of the time. I forgot to move the people in the shuttle. Yeah, I find it very strange how so many people are more principled than pragmatic. Because, frankly, I see being a principled person certainly better than being a drifter, you could say, like someone who just kind of acts on instinct. But it's still, for the most part, I'd just say inferior. Like, you may say that's a strong statement, but yes, I will say a strong statement. It's inferior to being a pragmatist. And yet there seem to be so many principled people in the world who act on, ideals or ideas that can oftentimes be very out of touch with reality. And in fact, people can be trying to fix things according to their principles, and then fail entirely. And, that can end, sometimes, with no impact, or even sometimes they can just make things worse, which, yeah, surprises me, because I think definitely more intelligent people tend to be pragmatists on most things. Like, people, just about anyone will still have principles. Like, for instance, most people will agree as a principle that murder is bad. Though some people think murder's only bad for certain people. Anyway, yeah, everyone has some principles, but I think most intelligent people will lean towards pragmatism to solve problems. Does anyone have medkits? Oh, this guy's dead. But yeah, you do kind of need more intelligence to be a pragmatist, because it requires you to make more judgments, like accurate judgments. But still, that only applies for, you could say, difficult things. Because even then, you know, most people who are pragmatic will have principles. For instance, murder being bad. Most people haven't thought and made a judgment on why murder's bad. They just say that is, which I think that's a fine principle to work by. But then principles like, for instance, an American principle that people should, like, earn what they have, that it's kind of an odd principle to stand by, because very often there are, essentially, there's plenty of evidence that can say that it's better not to work by that principle all of the time, and yet people continue to. And that is an example on, like, a societal level. But, you know, even on the personal level, people's principles will be, well, very rarely is a principle obviously wrong that someone holds, but still, people will be kind of essentially disproven in their principles. Like, they'll try to do something according to their principle, and it just won't work, and yet people hold on to their principles, which I find very odd, because I honestly don't have that many principles. Like, same as, for instance, my moral compass. I'm very much utilitarian, aside from my own selfishness. When acting on others, I'm a utilitarian in that I believe it's kind of best to create the most happiness in whatever form that is. And I think that's kind of a pragmatic approach, because, well, I don't always act by that principle, but, well, I won't say that, actually. I do always act according to that, but I don't always act according to the principle of distributing out happiness, which a lot of people seem to think utilitarianism is. Because you can often just get the most happiness by making one person very happy. Like, for instance, one person having $1,000, that's probably going to create more happiness for them than 1,000 people having $1. So that's an example that disproves the principle of trying to share happiness as much as possible. But yeah, I tend not to stick to principles that much, which, yeah, I'm quite puzzled by people who do. Seems like oftentimes just don't work, and yet people stick to them. I suppose it's because a lot of people, I say how being principled is a simpler way to think. It's also, it takes a level of intelligence to reflect on yourself and your ways of thinking, and to recognise when stuff doesn't work, so that is perhaps why the principled people, who have a simpler way of thinking, then also stick to that principled view, because they're too simple to, having a simple way of thinking means that they don't think about their way of thinking. There's no philosophy, you could say. Yep, it's an alien. Ah. I think my guy's line of fire will be blocked. Oh, no. It's a good shot. But no, I'll say I'm constantly thinking about the way I think, like, for instance, that's why I like utilitarianism, because it's a way of systematizing moral choices. In other words, it's a way of thinking about morals, which is more than most more principled moral systems do. Utilitarianism is one that can work with statistics and maths, for instance. And you can create very complex rule sets, and you can, to a degree actually, prove the philosophy. Like, it, as much as happiness is measurable, you can measure it, and with the utilitarian approach, prove what things can generate more happiness than what other things. But with other principles, that's kind of more difficult. That's good. This guy resisted a psionic attack. He ain't got no gun. Yeah, I say being principled is a simple way of thinking. That doesn't mean people who think necessarily aren't necessarily dumb people, and dumb people don't necessarily think simply, which is what's an additional confusing factor, in that you can have someone working as, you know... Hold on. Yeah, I can't really fire at them. Still, you can have someone working a job that's very simple, for instance, because they lack, you could say, the traditional view of intelligence. For instance, if someone's working as like a cashier or a bricklayer or something their entire life, and yet some of these people are practically comparable to the ancient Greek philosophers. Like, yeah, there are people in the most random places who are extremely wise and think very deeply, and yet there are also, you know, top-level politicians, scientists, mathematicians, engineers, who are just very simple-minded people, despite being intelligent. Which, you know, people speak about emotional intelligence and book intelligence, essentially, as different things. I think this is then a third branch, you could say. There's kind of, I would call it methodic intelligence, or procedural intelligence. Thinking about the thinking. Philosophical intelligence, you could also say. And that seems to be something that, yeah, it's... Ooh. Yeah. Oh, ooh. That was a misclick, but at least nothing bad happened. Anyway, I would say that that's kind of... It's interestingly, I would say, linked more to emotional intelligence than to kind of book intelligence, though it's still not that closely linked. But it's in the way that, you know, even if they're introverts, for instance, a lot of philosophers and such, and some of the most, some of the most famous scientists and mathematicians who develop additional ways of thinking are very emotionally well-rounded people, very emotionally intelligent people. I think that would be perhaps because to have emotional intelligence, part of that is thinking about how other people think. And so that is perhaps linked to the skill to think about how you think. Though it's not, it's not like a causal relationship. It's more a trend that I've noticed. But there's, I would say definitely a stronger link there than between the book intelligence and philosophical intelligence. But yeah, sorry if this has been a bit of a rant, but I do just find it amazing how many intelligent people think so simply, to put it, shortly. It is also a thing I will say, I'm certainly not immune to unthinkingness. I do, of course, like most people, hold prejudices and stuff in my mind, like assuming things about how the world works. But the thing is, when I'm using those prejudices to make an important decision, I will call the prejudice into question. I will think about, why do I think that? What caused me to come to this conclusion? Is it true? Before acting seriously on that thought. But there are so many people who just, assume they're right without putting any further thought into it, which, I find it amazing that such people can get so far in life. But I suppose it's because the world's actually pretty simple if you start to dissect things and how they work. You don't actually need to think too complex about most things because the world isn't that complex. But most of the most complex thought is for theoretical things rather than real world things, which means that you can get very far in the real world with simple thought. Now I should write an essay about that, because frankly I think my ideas are good. And while this may sound like rambling, and it certainly is, I think if I put it into a refined, rhetorical form in an essay, I could construct my evidence in a more structural and complete manner. Perhaps publish that process and try to convince people. Which again, leaping back to that original thing, people are principled. Not only do they not personally think about things a lot, two are next to each other. They don't personally think about things a lot. They don't even listen to arguments from others. Like, it's not just that they're too simple or lazy or whatever to think themselves. It's that they're simply unwilling to change their thought in any regard. I find that wrong, Yeah, wrong, but what I meant to say was confusing. I find it confusing because it often leads to you being wrong, and I try to be as wrong as little as possible. I think that's something more people ought to aim for, but they don't. It's a pretty decent trade. Ooh, good. It's another research. That's annoying. Oh, this is my Antarctic base, is it? Yeah. Yeah, I thought the Martian solution was what the final research needed, but yeah. Seemed not. Forgot to reinforce because I got distracted by that. Oh, this will have chrysalids on it, I just remembered. So, need to stay elevated. Stay out of the water, beware of piranhas. This is just phenomenal accuracy. Lay down some smoke. Protect my guys. I think the series is going to go a bit longer than I anticipated then if the Martian solution isn't the final research, but it's not really a problem. It's unexpected. Hey, it's chrysalid. Took them long enough. Why is this alien impossible to hit? Just have like the Neo Matrix level dodging skills. Only took like, what would that be, like 10 shots in total. See, that guy wasn't difficult to hit. Don't know why there was such a problem with the other one. I think when it comes time for the Martian solution, I'll make sure that's, or for the Mars attack, I'll make sure that that's its own thing, own episode. So I think it'll be long enough to deserve it. In fact, I know there's like an inside and outside section. Maybe I'll split them into 2 videos, because yeah, I'm not sure exactly how long it is, but I expect that it will be long. Get this guy to use his motion scan on the roof. It's very weird that they consume stamina while they're flying. Like, what is a hand-cracked levitation or something? They just need to flap their arms really hard the whole time to stay afloat. Thank God for the aliens not being able to aim. Entirely missed that blast launcher. Oh, that's a hole in the ship, I think. Oh, no, it's not. I thought wrong. Still, I haven't a clue where that blast launcher is. I think I should deal with it before I move any further. Yep. Maybe that guy does though. Didn't look like that guy was holding a blast launcher. Good reaction. Very few inside, seem. It also seems there's no Illyrium, which is a bit annoying, because I will need more to hold over my supply until I can attack Mars and finish the game. What is that, like 3, maybe 4 fuel cells dead? It's disappointing. Magnifique. There we go. It's good. Stanislav is a good name. convenient. Guessing they're the last one. It's a very smooth mission. I'll keep the small launchers around, I think. So, you know, they might be useful to capture a high-ranking alien. When I do my next base assault, I think that's when I'll try it. So there's 18 on that one. 0 there, so give them 9 to each. Oh, I need more grenades. Let's not building more storage. Not if I have a reason not to. A mine shield. I have no idea. Now that's an idea. I'll go Google what a mine shield is. Just wait a tick. So I just googled, it seems that mine shields like decrease the chance of the aliens finding your base, which is interesting. So it's a bit pointless in Antarctica where basically no UFOs are looking, but yeah, we'll build it anyway. It's not like I'm short on money, really. Like, you see that nice blue line? That's the line of my infinite money. It's interesting that the UFO activity's been dropping so much. And then I get 3 abductors all at once. all by the same race. There they go. Make some more of these. I think they take a Lyrium, but I have a bit to spare. Oh wait, no, they'll just die. There we go. There we go. There. At least they can't aim. They're getting unusually lucky. Something bad must be about to happen. No. Now, I find it interesting that games, like, you know, on the Amiga, for instance, the XCOM version of this, the version... Let me start that sentence again. The version of this for the Amiga, this being XCOM, looks like garbage. Like it's... the colours are bad, and that's because, I'm guessing, you know, this was made for, like, VGA with 256 colour PCs, and, like, you know, bitmap colour, whereas, and fixed palette, whereas the Amiga, you know, even though it has its dynamic palette, this was made to expect more colours, so, and you know, with low pixels, the dithering wouldn't have worked so well, even if you could pick a, like, 32 colour palette, and to make Amiga 500 compatible with the amount of memory a strategy game takes, they probably wouldn't have much memory to have a 32 colour palette, so they would have been stuck to 16 or something, maybe even 8. But yeah, it's weird that developers didn't do stuff, because I see it's quite simple. For each, like, sprite, each thing that you could possibly want to render, just have it so that's stored in your file, which would be easy with IFF files, which are like the Amiga format for most images and such. Because you can add, like, you know, tags in there, they're kind of like XML. Have different sections. You could add some weighted colour values to images and say, like, you know, this image, it wants this colour with this much priority. Like, this is how important it is to the image. So the importance would just be relative to other colours. So, you know, for these people, you'd have the kind of grey colour would be very important. The skin colour, less so. The hair, perhaps even less. And then you can just have a thing so that your renderer, whenever it like loads an image, it just looks at the colour values and then, you know, compares to what's already on screen, and it can kind of calculate what the colours should be, like, you know, mixing things together. And the Amiga, you could have colours that more than 16 colours, you just use a copper list that swap the colours vertically on the screen. And so you could have that. The code wouldn't be too complex. The main thing would be CPU time. But I don't think this game would be... The game wouldn't require an intensive CPU because it's not working in real time. So it's fine if the game was spending a bit more time on graphics. Because obviously people will be looking at the graphics. And they won't be too annoyed by, like, you know, maybe a quarter second of wait on things, or like things taking a quarter second longer due to the CPU being occupied. But the reason I take it most devs didn't do that is because, you know, games that were for the PC, they couldn't be bothered to make the graphics look too good, so they just kind of chose a stock colour palette. And games that were on the Amiga had sprites that were made to look good with less colours, so they didn't need to do that kind of, you could say, bitmap interfacing technique. But yeah, I'm making a library that does compatibility with Amiga, and I plan to have a thing where you can, you know, have a renderer that you basically... You can plug in what colours you want, with what priorities, and it will in what areas. Basically, you can draw a bitmap screen, and it will automatically figure out on the fly, you know, what colours would be best where, and then it can generate a copper list that, you know, basically takes over the entire screen, shifting colours. And well, that may be a bit memory intensive. You can, you know, disable bits of it to optimise. So, for instance, you could say, I don't care about colours being so good and having a copper list that acts on the horizontal parts, just have a copper list that works, like, vertically. Or do things vertically, and then, you'd save RAM on that. Or bitmap, you can say, I'll only have, a 4-bit bitmap thing rather than an 8-bit. And so that would simplify, make the CPU faster at doing the bitmap adjustment thing, and it would take less memory for that buffer. There are numerous things you can do to optimize. Rather to cut down what's needed. It's not optimizing as in making it more efficient, it's optimizing as in getting rid of features that aren't needed. Streamlining, you could say. But yeah, I think the game looks very nice in this. I think 256 colour bitmap kind of format. But yeah, I've seen pictures on the Amiga, it did not look nice. You compare that to games like, Shadow of the Beast, that's stunning. And some of the graphics demos there, like, some of the graphics demos on the Amiga from the 90s look like the kind of things that would still be impressive on a PC in like the 2010s. Like, they are top of the line for graphics demo programming. I was saying graphics demo, I won't say that. Demo is the correct term, because, they also tend to have impressive soundtracks, which is another thing the Amiga was decent at. It was good when it came out, but then it quickly became, just frankly worse than the competition. Because once you had cheap-ish sound cards in a PC that had 256 sound channels, and could do exactly what the Amiga sound channels did, good bit depth, good sample rate, being able to play direct memory access. I think some I'm hazarding a guess, I'm not, very educated on this, but I'm guessing some sound cards probably would have onboard memory, so you could even do that. Yeah, that would just be, frankly, superior to what the Amiga had. But the Amiga was good in contrast to sound where the CPU had to manually twiddle the bits on the speaker or something like that. And, you couldn't do anything else while playing sound. That's just worse, in every possible way. But then the Amiga became worse in every possible way than what the PC had, so, yeah. While it was decent in graphics, it could not compete in sound, at least after 5-ish years tops. I think I'll just shoot my way through the foliage. Yep. Doesn't have time units. Wow, they shot a lot of plants. I'll just hope that alien doesn't catch him in this exposed spot. My main thing is I don't like I don't like the jungle, A, because, you know, mutants are invisible, but also, the main reason I don't like is that it's just so unclear where you can and can't walk. That's quite annoying. Be good if there was like a button to just expose hitboxes, and then, you know, it had like these, you know, the red cursor thing, if it had that kind of around hitboxes, that would be good if, you know, there was a button down here. Like, you know, who needs the expend all remaining time units button? That doesn't work. And just replace that with the hitbox thing. Surely people didn't like this back in the day when the game was developed, or something. But then again, you didn't really push updates to games either, so not something they would have fixed. Because they wouldn't fix anything. I'm just going to focus on the UFO. It seems like there's only like one unit left with the amount of time these turns are taking. Basically instant. Don't have time to check. Yeah, 2 left. What else is? That guy's 4-2. -1, 1. -1, -1, and -5, -8. One there. And the others in the UFO too. I'll keep them outside for the moment and just hope that the guy doesn't come out this turn. They did not. Oh, good, I can see both of them. There we go. I think that's a fine place to end it, so I'll see you next time.